Across the vast, sprawling canvas of our planet's history, certain moments stand out, etched not in stone, but in blood and steel. These are the turning points, the fulcrums upon which the destiny of civilizations has pivoted. It is a story often told through the grand movements of peoples and the slow, inexorable march of ideas. Yet, if we listen closely through the quiet hum of millennia, we can hear the clash of swords, the thunder of hooves, and the defiant roar of individuals whose will, whose sheer, indomitable force of personality was enough to bend the arc of time itself. On the sun-scorched plains of Anatolia, where the Aegean Sea whispers against the ancient coastline, a legend was forged that would echo through 30 centuries of Western thought. Here, before the impenetrable walls of Troy, the greatest armies of the age collided. Yet, among the thousands of heroes and kings, one name instilled a terror almost supernatural: Achilles. He was the ultimate predator of this human ecosystem, a warrior so swift, so deadly, so seemingly invincible, that his presence on the battlefield was like a force of nature, a hurricane of bronze and fury. His story is not merely one of martial prowess, it is a profound and tragic exploration of a single all-consuming emotion: rage, the menace, the divine anger that opens Homer's Iliad. This was not the fleeting temper of an ordinary man. It was a deep, burning grievance born of wounded pride, a feeling so powerful it could bring the entire Greek war effort to its knees. When Agamemnon slighted his honor, Achilles did not simply complain. He withdrew his devastating power from the conflict, an act of defiance that would cost thousands of lives and alter the very destiny of the war. Archaeological whispers from sites like Hisarlik, layers of destruction, bronze arrowheads, sling bullets, ground the myth in a tangible reality of brutal, prolonged warfare. Maps of the Bronze Age Aegean show interconnected, often warring, city-states for whom honor and the spoils of war were the primary currencies of power. In this world, a warrior like Achilles, said to be the son of a goddess, was more than a soldier. He was a living weapon. His rage, therefore, was a strategic catastrophe for the Greeks. In his absence, the tide of the war turned dramatically. The Trojans, emboldened, surged from behind their walls, pushing the invaders back to the very edge of the sea, threatening to burn their ships and end the decade-long siege. The fate of the Achaean expedition now hung by the most slender of threads. The catalyst for Achilles' return was not a plea from his king or a promise of riches. It was a tragedy. Patroclus, his dearest companion, donned Achilles' famed armor and entered the battle to save the beleaguered Greeks. His valor led him too far, into the path of Hector. The death of Patroclus at Hector's hands was the spark that ignited Achilles' fury, transforming sullen anger into a burning need for vengeance. He cast aside his quarrel with Agamemnon, his only focus now the man who had killed his friend. He re-entered the war, like the coming of a plague. He tore through the Trojan ranks, a whirlwind of death seeking one man. The river god Scamander, choked with the bodies of his victims, rose up against him. But nothing could stop him. His pursuit was relentless, a predator closing in on preordained prey. The final confrontation was inevitable. Hector, Prince of Troy, stood alone outside the Scaean gates. The duel that followed, the most famous in literature, was not a contest of equals. It was an execution. Achilles toyed with Hector before delivering the fatal spear thrust. But even that was not enough to quench his loss. In his madness, Achilles refused Hector a proper burial. He fastened the body to his chariot and dragged it in the dust around Troy's walls, forcing the hero's family, King Priam and Andromache, to watch from the ramparts. This was the horrifying apex of his rage. The story does not end with victory, but with a quiet, profound moment. Elderly King Priam, guided by the gods, risks everything to sneak into the Greek camp at night. He enters Achilles' tent not as a king, but as a grieving father, and kneels to kiss the hands that murdered his son. He begs for Hector's body back. In that moment, Achilles sees a reflection of his own grief. His rage breaks, tears and empathy follow. He agrees to return Hector's body, allowing a truce for mourning. Though Achilles' death by an arrow to his heel would soon follow, this act of mercy solidifies his legend. Achilles became the archetypal model for the Greek warrior ethos. Young men across the Hellenic world idealized his martial excellence. Athens, Sparta, Macedon. Through the Romans and into the Renaissance and beyond, his story endured. His rage, his grief, his complex inner world have been re-examined by countless poets, playwrights, philosophers. He is the eternal warrior, symbol of glory and the terrible costs of war, and of the faint hope that compassion can bloom even in darkness. They are the warriors. They are more than just soldiers. They are phenomena of human nature. They are the living embodiment of ambition, of rage, of a desperate yearning for freedom, or an insatiable hunger for conquest. To understand them is to understand the very heart of conflict and the powerful, often violent, currents that have shaped our societies, our borders, our cultures, and even the words we speak today. In the closing years of the 13th century, the ancient kingdom of Scotland was a land living in shadow. Its throne was empty, its future uncertain. Its powerful southern neighbour, England, saw an opportunity. King Edward I, Longshanks, a ruthless, formidable monarch, imposed direct rule over the Scots. He treated the nation as a conquered fiefdom, garrisoning castles with English soldiers, imposing crippling taxes, demanding humiliating oaths of fealty from the Scottish nobility. Into this climate of oppression, a figure of humble origins would emerge. William Wallace was not a great lord or claimant to the throne. He was the younger son of a minor landowner, one of the common people. He possessed little more than a fierce love for his homeland and a burning hatred for its occupiers. Legends speak of a personal tragedy, the murder of his love, as the spark of rebellion. Whatever the cause, his defiance was absolute. He was not fighting for land, title, or personal power. He was fighting for an idea, the idea of Scotland itself. He fought for the freedom of its people from foreign tyranny. He became a rallying point. His band of guerrillas grew into a people's army. His early campaigns were audacious raids on English outposts and supply lines. He operated from the wild forests and the hills of his homeland, striking fast and vanishing. To the English, he was an outlaw. To many Scots, a saviour. By autumn 1297, his rebellion had become a national threat. A large English army, perhaps 10,000 men, marched north, led by the Earl of Surrey and the hated treasurer Hugh de Cressingham. A force of medieval military might, cavalry and infantry. Wallace chose his ground with tactical genius. He positioned his men on soft, marshy ground north of a narrow wooden bridge at Stirling. The bridge was a bottleneck. Only 2 horsemen could cross abreast. The English commanders, arrogant, pressed their heavy cavalry across the causeway. Wallace waited, holding his men with iron discipline. The knights and Welsh archers began their slow crossing. He allowed enough vanguard onto the northern bank to be dangerous, not enough to form a proper line. When the moment was right, Wallace gave the signal. The Scottish spearmen in schiltrons surged forward. They smashed into the disorganized English vanguard with no room to maneuver. A detachment seized the bridgehead, cutting off retreat and reinforcement. The English were severed in two. What followed was slaughter, a brutal massacre on the banks of the Forth. Many English drowned, weighed down by armour. Hugh de Cressingham was killed. His body was flayed. The remaining English fled in panic. Stirling Bridge was an improbable, miraculous victory. Wallace was knighted and proclaimed Guardian of Scotland. He briefly ruled in the name of the absent king. Though later defeated at Falkirk, betrayed, captured and executed in London, his impact was indelible. His execution, meant to terrify, created a martyr. His refusal to submit became the myth of Scottish resistance. He had lost the war, but won Scotland's soul. William Wallace became an immortal symbol. For 700 years, his story has inspired Scots to cherish their identity. Across the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Mongolian steppe, a landscape of brutal extremes, a new force was stirring. Here, where the sky is a boundless dome and the earth stretches to an endless horizon, survival is a daily battle against the elements and against one another. The scattered nomadic tribes roamed this territory, their lives dictated by the seasons and the constant simmering threat of conflict. It was a world of shifting alliances and sudden, violent betrayals, a fractured realm where unity seemed not just improbable, but utterly impossible. Yet it was from this crucible of hardship and division that a figure would emerge, destined to bind these disparate peoples into a single, unstoppable entity. Born into this harsh reality around the year 1162, he was named Temujin. His early life was not one of privilege, but of profound suffering and loss. His father, a minor chieftain, was poisoned by a rival clan, leaving Temujin's family abandoned and cast out onto the steppe to fend for themselves. They were forced into a life of extreme poverty, hunting marmots, gathering wild roots to survive the brutal winters. This period of intense adversity, of hunger and humiliation, would not break the young boy. Instead, it forged within him an unyielding resilience and a deep, burning ambition. The steppe itself became his teacher. He learned to read the subtle shifts in the wind, to track animals across the frozen tundra, and to understand the intricate social dynamics of the tribes that vied for dominance. He endured enslavement, escaping his captors with a cunning that belied his years. Each trial, each betrayal, served only to sharpen his mind and harden his resolve. Temujin started small, gathering a loyal band of followers drawn to his charisma, his strategic mind, and his unwavering sense of justice. He forged powerful alliances, most notably with his childhood friend and eventual rival Jamukha, and with the influential leader Togrul of the Kirite tribe. Through a series of daring raids and calculated battles, he steadily consolidated his power, absorbing defeated clans into his growing coalition. He was not just conquering them, he was offering them a new identity. By 1206, the fractured landscape of the Mongolian steppe had been transformed. At a great assembly, a Kurultai, The chieftains of the now united tribes bestowed upon Temujin the title of Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. This was more than a new name. It was the birth of an empire and the dawn of a new era of warfare. The Mongol army he created was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was a perfectly disciplined, highly mobile force, a living extension of the Khan's own strategic genius. Every soldier was a superb horseman and a deadly archer, capable of firing with astonishing accuracy from the saddle, a skill honed from a lifetime on the steppe. He organized his warriors into a decimal system, units of 10, 100, 1,000 and 10,000, which allowed for precise command and control on a chaotic battlefield. He established a dedicated corps of engineers who could construct sophisticated siege weaponry, a vital tool for overcoming the fortified cities that stood in his path. Communication was maintained by a system of mounted messengers, the Yam, who could carry orders across vast distances with incredible speed. It was this combination of speed, discipline and adaptability that made the Mongol horde an almost supernatural force of nature. The first true test of this new military machine came against the powerful Khwarezmian Empire, a vast and wealthy sultanate stretching across modern-day Iran, Afghanistan and Central Asia. After the Khwarezmian Shah made the fatal error of executing Mongol envoys, Genghis Khan unleashed his fury. In 1219, a Mongol army estimated at over 100,000 strong descended upon the empire like a storm. This was not a simple raid. It was a meticulously planned, multi-pronged invasion designed to encircle, overwhelm, and utterly annihilate the enemy. The speed of their advance was terrifying, covering immense distances in defiance of all known military logic. The great cities of the Khwarezmian Empire, Samarkand, Bukhara, Urgench, were centers of learning, culture, and commerce. To the Mongols, they were merely obstacles. One by one, they fell. The Mongols employed brutal psychological warfare, often offering a chance to surrender, but punishing resistance with complete and total destruction. Survivors would tell tales of rivers of blood and mountains of skulls, stories designed to spread terror and break the will of any who might dare to oppose the Khan's advance. This was warfare on a scale of ferocity and efficiency that was simply incomprehensible to its victims, a cataclysm that seemed to herald the end of the world itself. The conquests of Genghis Khan were not simply a destructive rampage, they were a geopolitical earthquake that permanently redrew the map of the world. At the time of his death in 1227, his empire stretched from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. It was a domain built on the foundations of conquest, but sustained by a remarkable and often brutal administrative efficiency. He needed order, communication, and a unified legal framework to hold it all together. He established a written legal code, the Yasa, which, though harsh, applied to everyone. Perhaps his most enduring legacy was the revitalization of the Silk Road. By pacifying the entire route, the Mongols created a continental zone of free trade and communication. Merchants, missionaries and explorers could travel from Europe to China with a degree of safety protected by the authority of the Khan. This forced opening initiated an unprecedented period of exchange, the Pax Mongo-Li-Ku. Gunpowder, the compass and the printing press flowed westward, helping to fuel the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery. In the wild, untamed north of the Roman Empire, a storm was gathering. Here, in the damp, misty lands of Britain, lived the Iceni, a Celtic tribe of proud and independent people. They had forged a delicate alliance with the encroaching Roman power, a pact intended to preserve their way of life under their king, Prasutagus. This was a land of ancient forests, powerful druidic traditions, where the connection to the earth was as profound as the tidal currents that shaped its shores. The Iceni were attempting to adapt to a new, dominant predator, hoping coexistence might be possible through diplomacy, tribute. But the Roman eagle casts a long and hungry shadow. Upon the death of King Prasutagus, the Romans saw not an ally, but a territory to be consumed. The king's will was utterly disregarded. The treaty was declared void, the kingdom annexed, its wealth plundered. The Romans descended upon the Iceni like a swarm of locusts, stripping away gold, land, and the very dignity of its people. The ultimate violation, Boudica was publicly flogged. Her daughters were subjected to horrific violence. This was a deliberate and savage act of degradation intended to extinguish defiance. This personal tragedy transformed a queen into a warrior. Grief and humiliation turned to incandescent rage. From the ashes, Boudica rose as vengeance incarnate. She became the rallying point for a people pushed beyond endurance. The call to arms echoed through forests and fens. Boudica travelled village to village, her presence a testament to Roman cruelty. She spoke of stolen lands, desecrated holy sites, violated children. Her words ignited neighbouring tribes, including the Trinovantes. A confederation of native warriors coalesced around her. Their first target, Camu Lo Dunum, modern Colchester. Boudica's painted warriors descended with speed and ferocity. The settlement was poorly defended. The Britons showed no mercy. The city was dismantled, inhabitants slaughtered, the temple of Claudius burned. The Roman response was swift, but disastrously inadequate. The 9th Legion marched to relieve the city. They marched into a trap. Boudica's forces ambushed the column. The battle was a massacre. Only the commander and a few cavalry escaped. With the 9th shattered, the path lay open. Boudica's army turned to Londinium. The city was undefended. Suetonius abandoned it. The Britons razed the city, markets destroyed, villas burned, population slaughtered. Suetonius consolidated 14th Legion, parts of the 20th Legion, about 10,000 men. He chose a defile on Watling Street, forest at his back, sloping flanks protecting his position. The Britons were forced to attack head-on. Boudica addressed her army from her chariot, daughters beside her, families in wagons. The Celtic charge thundered forward. The legionaries held and unleashed volleys of pilum. The Britons crashed against the shield wall. Romans fought with the gladius, brutal and methodical. The narrow ground became a slaughter. Roman sources claim 80,000 British dead versus 400 legionaries. Afterwards, Boudica is said to have poisoned herself. Her rebellion burned out in one afternoon. Her legacy endured as a symbol of defiance. In the small but formidable kingdom of Macedon, a new kind of predator was being forged. The young prince, Alexander, was not merely the son of a king, he was the heir to a revolutionary vision. His father, Philip II, had transformed Macedon from a fractious backwater into the dominant military power of Greece, creating a professional army of unprecedented discipline and tactical flexibility. Philip dreamed of uniting the warring Greek city-states. He planned a great crusade of vengeance and conquest against the Persian Empire. This grand ambition was instilled in Alexander from his earliest years. His education was as formidable as his military training, his mind shaped by Aristotle. He learned to see the world not just as territories to conquer, but as a canvas for a new kind of civilization. He devoured the tales of Homer, seeing himself as a new Achilles. When Philip was assassinated, Alexander, at 20, inherited more than a throne. He inherited a peerless army and a burning desire to surpass his father's dreams. First, he had to secure his kingdom. Thebes rose in open revolt. Alexander marched south with astonishing swiftness. He fell upon the city before it could mount a defense. He offered no quarter. Thebes was razed, its population sold into slavery. The message was clear: defiance, Genghis, annihilation. With Greece pacified through terror, Alexander turned east across the Hellespont. He targeted the Persian Achaemenid Empire, from Egypt to the Indus. In 334 BC, he crossed into Asia Minor. The decisive moment came at Gaugamela. Darius III had gathered a vast, multi-ethnic army, perhaps 250,000 men. He brought scythed chariots, war elephants, and Scythian cavalry. He chose a wide, flat plain and levelled it for his chariots. Alexander faced overwhelming numbers with fewer than 50,000. He refused a head-on clash. Instead, he advanced in an oblique formation, angling his right wing forward and refusing his left. This drew Darius to commit his best cavalry to counter the move. As Persian cavalry surged, a gap opened in their centre near Darius. At the head of his companion cavalry, Alexander wheeled and led a wedge-shaped charge. He aimed straight for the heart of the Persian army and Darius himself. The charge shattered Darius's nerve. He fled. The Persian centre disintegrated. Panic turned the battle into a rout. The Persian Empire was broken on the plains of Gaugamela, Babylon, Susa, Persepolis. In Persepolis, Alexander ordered Xerxes' palace burned. He became the new great king, ruler from the Adriatic Sea to the mountains of the Hindu Kush. But Alexander sought more than conquest. He encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women. He adopted Persian dress and court ceremony. He founded dozens of cities, most named Alexandria. These cities became melting pots of Greek and local cultures. A Hellenistic age was born. Greek language and ideas spread across Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia. Scientific knowledge blossomed: astronomy, mathematics, in centers like Alexandria in Egypt. Alexander died in Babylon at 32. His empire fractured into successor kingdoms, yet his legacy endured. He tore down barriers between East and West. He was more than a warrior. He was a forger of worlds. From the rage of Achilles on the plains of Troy, from the tactical genius of Alexander on the fields of Gaugamela, from the desperate fury of Boudica defending her homeland, from the unstoppable ambition of Genghis Khan on the vast steppe, from the defiant cry for freedom of William Wallace in the Scottish Highlands, these figures are more than just historical footnotes. They are primal forces of nature, human hurricanes who tore through the landscape of their time, leaving behind a world irrevocably altered. They demonstrate that history is not merely a slow, inexorable tide, but can be violently and decisively reshaped by the will and actions of a single, extraordinary individual.